Okay, hello. Once again, I am Miranda. This time I'm going to be talking about sexism. If this slide, okay. My why. So first of all, I think it's just a huge thing that needs to be addressed. I think with social work, we're talking specifically about sexism in those kind of interactions, but I think just in the world in general, we see people being discriminated against because of their gender all the time. And the other thing is it's easily hidden. Like there's so many different microaggressions that we see that are just small things, but can often be swept under the rug. And then I just think it's really important to fight for equality. I don't think, like when we talk about sexism, I do think of feminism, but not just the fact that when we talk about feminism, like it's not only fighting for women's rights, it's fighting for everybody's rights. And it's important that we can all be seen eye to eye. So that's my why. From the sociological perspective. So I read a thing from the social worker organization, and it was talking about sexism within social work. So not just the interaction that social workers have with their clients, but like within the actual community and the hiring process and things like that. And one quote from it that I especially liked was it said, "Today, women's issues are often limited to health and reproductive matters. However, almost every issue is a women's issue that requires an intersectional gender lens." I thought that was really interesting, right? Like, there's obviously like the common topics of paid maternity leave or paternity leave, or things like they said, like health and reproductive matters that are kind of more hot topics. But I like that it was like every issue can be related because everyone is going to have a different perspective on things based off of things that make up their identity, right? And gender is definitely a part of your identity that feeds into how we see the world around us. And so they talked about it in that sense, in that we need to pay more attention, and then also talk about having proper treatment in the workforce. So not just in interaction with clients, like I already said, but proper treatment of social workers in the workforce when it comes to any kind of discrimination that could be based off of gender, and making sure that we're not just avoiding that, but not letting it happen and not letting it continually happen either. And then I also read a news story. It was from BBC News, and it was talking about the police force in Scotland. Well, one of them in a district in Scotland. And a woman police officer filed a claim, and actually her lawsuit went through. But it was in this particular force, there was a boys' club that she felt like her and her women counterparts were being excluded from. And she talked about how there was a text chain saying sexist things in the text chain, and how in another case, somebody asked the superior officer something, and they just in reply yelled at her, yelled in her face, and have record of people saying, oh, she shouldn't be in this management position because she'll have like PMS, and essentially, and she won't be in the right emotional state to have that job. So all just a bunch of sexist nonsense that was being populated through that police office, that district. But also I thought about it as it had an impact on the community, right? Like if that kind of inequality and that kind of hatred and, just rudeness, but it goes beyond rudeness, right? But is going on within the police force. Like, obviously, I don't feel that they're going to be able to be doing their jobs to the best degree that they would otherwise be capable of doing, right? Like if you're having that kind of dissonance within the force, like it's going to affect the community, and I think it extends to affecting like people filing police reports if they already have this mindset, and that's just kind of the way that their force has always been. Then like they're not going to take certain claims as seriously, and so it can have a huge impact on the community. And then also we see this just kind of being perpetual. If I know that as a woman I'm not going to enjoy my time in this workplace, why would I want to work there? Right. And so it just kind of propagates this mistreatment and discourages participation. ASW, a quote that I took from it was from the ethics, which said, social workers respect the inherent dignity and worth of a person. And to me, worth and dignity of the person is just so separated from their gender, their assigned gender, whatever, that, you know, just being respectful and willing to work with that person and to help and want the best for that person, there's no place for sexism in that environment. That's what I gathered from NASW. And then as far as the comparison goes, so you see it having both an inward and an outward impact. So by that I mean sexism not only affects the insides of organizations, but then it also is going to affect the community. What's put in is also going to affect what's put out. And I think we see that in both cases, right? In both the guidelines for treating social workers with respect and not allowing any harboring of sexism in the workplace. And also the same thing with the news article of this woman calling out that there was sexism in this police force, and just seeing how within these organizations, it's also going to affect what goes out from them. I did notice that there's a kind of a different interpretation of responsibility, right? Like when it comes to social work, you're working with clients that you need to be respectful towards, versus in the news, you just kind of, well, in the news, but kind of in the world today, you don't really have to be, obviously you want to be considerate of people, right? But outside of your social sphere, it kind of is like, well, you can think what you want to think at home, but at the workplace don't, right? Which I don't think is a great terminology, but it's kind of the attitude that I've noticed. But just these different interpretations of responsibility of, as a social worker, you have to be extra mindful. And then I think in both of them, there's just the emphasis of establishing a safe environment. So social workers, when working with clients, really want to be able to form that trust and have that safe environment, as well as anywhere else, you know, in the world. We want to have a happy place to live in our community and be able to feel safe, and not feel any kind of discrimination due to gender, which sexism brings about. So I think we just see them both working together, but I would say the only difference is that as social workers, they have a heightened, not even responsibility, because everybody has a responsibility, but a heightened sense, like a heightened awareness of this. And then my question for everyone is, how can social workers best address sexism in community organizations that they take part of? So I'm just thinking of like any community organization. So, you know, rec center, whatever it may be, how can we best, as a person, as a single social worker, make sure that we are eliminating any sexism in those organizations? And that is it for me today.